Very good evening to you. My name's Tilman Ruff. I'm delighted to be speaking to you from Naarm, Melbourne. Delighted to have been invited to say something at this wonderful concert. And before I begin, I really want to acknowledge that I speak to you from Naarm, from Melbourne, where the Wurundjeri people have been the traditional custodians since time immemorial, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and future, and express my gratitude for their continuing custodianship of this place from which all of us who live here benefit. I also want to say that how much I am in sympathy with you at this extraordinarily difficult time of the pandemic, and hope that you will have better leadership to effectively use the extraordinary power of the wonderful vaccines that have been developed, and the further ones likely to be in the process of being developed and rolled out very soon. This is a very trying experience for us all. It's reminded us of just how important our expertise and evidence to inform policy, of how important good leadership is, of how important international cooperation is, of how much better, actually, on average, women leaders do in getting on with the things that need to be done. And it reminds us that collective global threats that we face, all of the complex global challenges, can only be addressed together, and that we truly are in this all together. And all of those things apply in spades to the problem that we're here tonight to mark the problem of nuclear weapons, and particularly to celebrate and acknowledge the historic entry into legal force of the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The first international treaty to categorically and comprehensively prohibit these worst of all weapons of mass destruction, the only ones that pose an existential threat to all of us, to everything that we love, and to all who might follow, and all our fellow creatures on this good earth, every day that they exist in silos, in submarines, on bombers, on trucks and railroad carriages, waiting to be ready to be launched. Art and artists have an incredibly important place in our hearts, in this work, in our lives, in helping to make real the otherwise what can seem very abstract grand chess power game that nuclear weapons are portrayed as being somehow this magical entity that procures international security and stability while threatening all of us with untold, indiscriminate nuclear violence, rather than the reality of what these things do. The transgenerational, transcontinental legacy of death and destruction that they leave in their wake for geological time and contamination that can't be undone. We know that we have no effective response, that prevention is the only cure, that the danger is great and the hour late, the risk much greater than previously thought, and that if we don't eliminate these weapons soon, then at some point they will inevitably be used by accident or design. In that extraordinary evolutionary challenge that we face to deal with not one but two existential threats at the same time, that both have the centre point of our climate. One, the risk of nuclear war, risking ice age conditions occurring within a matter of days, and of course the effects of uncontrolled global heating that we're already starting to see really start to bite in our lives, that will only accelerate if we don't get some of the serious leadership and action that we need. This treaty matters, like the treaties that have banned other indiscriminate and inhumane weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, landmines and cluster munitions, which have provided the basis and motivation for ongoing efforts towards the elimination of those weapons, and have resulted in a significant reduction in the production, testing, deployment, use, justification, trading and casualties resulting from these weapons. We will see that with nuclear weapons as well, as this treaty becomes the international standard, drives divestment, fuels civil society coalitions and efforts, puts evidence front and centre, brings democracy and humanity back to nuclear disarmament, and puts the nuclear armed states on notice that nothing else but fulfilment of their binding legal obligation to get rid of these global suicide bombs will do, and they better get on with it. There's an enormous amount all of us can do to urge our governments to support, sign, ratify this treaty, faithfully implement it, develop and build relationships with the future governments and leaders that will act if our current incumbents won't, drive the divestment that will further stigmatise these weapons and end these weapons for all time. We can't prevent all pandemics. We can certainly respond to them better, quicker, with more effective cooperation. We can prevent some of them. But this problem, a far worse problem, is completely preventable. Machines built by human hands can be demolished by human hands. As Setsuko Thurlow advised when the treaty was passed at the negotiating conference on that historic day, the 7th of July 2017, this is the beginning of the end of nuclear weapons. And this is a very powerful tool in our continuing work. I invite you now to sit back and be inspired and nurtured and sustained, have the cockles of your hearts warmed by wonderful works of art in musical form. And thank you for your commitment on this shared journey to make the world safer for everything we love and hold dear, and eliminate the worst of all weapons. It's beyond time. The treaty provides a really powerful tool to help us in this crucial work. Thank you.